Okay, so this is essential accounting reports and some repetition to what we already went over. I'm not going to pull this up full screen because I have a tendency to go back and forth between the slideshow and the actual FBS program. So it's easier if I don't have that full up here, and I apologize if that bothers anybody. It doesn't show up at all though. Basically, it says what we're going to go over was the income statement, the balance sheet, the check reconciliation, the cash requirement, accounts receivable aging, and the user-defined report. I do apologize. This was supposed to be in the afternoon originally, so it kind of wasn't supposed to follow the last one originally, and I wasn't expecting to do the same stuff back to back. So we'll go a little more in depth on these reports, though, so it's not quite as repetitive. I guess I'll do this bigger so we can read it. Go this way first. Okay. So on the income statement, just some things to know that it is an income expense for the time period selected. It can be a year, a period, a quarter, a week, whatever you want. It can be customized by setting up a definition, and we will go more into depth in the definitions. We'll go through some of these slides, and then I'll show you how to set those definitions up for both the income statement and balance sheet. The use date cash exchange field does give you the option of cash or accrual. Again, 1 is accrual, 2 and 3 are date cash exchanged. You can run or compare by the cash, tax, financial management, or market. And those, again, can be flagged like that by journal entries that you entered. You can compare periods selected. If you have intercompany, you can run the income statement across multiple companies. So if you have multiple companies, say you have 4 companies, each company will be a separate column on the income statement. And then you'll have your elimination column based on your division set up for intercompany, and then you'll have a total on the far right. You are able to compare this to your life cycle budget if you have life cycle budget as well. You can kind of see here I have on the left without a definition, it lists all the ledger accounts. And then here on the right I have with a definition. So under other income, here I have 4 lines for other income, or 3 lines, I'm sorry. And here I've condensed it just down to the 1 line. I also put the gains on assets of sales up here, though, in the other income. You can't tell there's nothing in it, but there it is pulled up there. Oops. So it's just a way, so we'll go over how to make those definitions in a few minutes. Just more concise report there. As discussed, the balance sheet is very similar in option to the income statement. The biggest difference is that your columns to include have options on how it's going to be viewed, liability versus assets and equity, or liability and equity. If you're running for a large amount of data, you would check this not to allow drill down up in the top right hand corner. Mouse, it's not coming up here. Up here, don't include drill down. That will just speed up the report because it doesn't give you any detail behind it. You can run other backup reports if you need to see the detail, but that will speed up the report if you're having an issue with the balance sheet taking a long time. There is this option here to include inactive accounts. So this is again to speed up report time. If you have a lot of inactive accounts, but they were inactivated during the current year, you might want to report on them, so you would want to check that box to report on the inactive accounts. But again, if you didn't use them in the current year and you're not really concerned about the inactive accounts in prior years, you could uncheck that box and it would speed the report up. You do have the net change lines option down here. Include net change line. That will show you that net change is at the very bottom of the report. If you're using definitions on the income statement or balance sheet, you have the option to start your definition with all the ledger accounts or none, your personal preference. You can add in headings, which will create subtotals under those headings to give some readability to your report, excuse me, and you can combine ledgers to condense the chart of accounts and make it more readable as well. You can also copy definitions across companies, so if you have a definition you like in one company and you don't have to recreate it in your other companies, you can just copy the definition over to have it similar in all companies. And at this time I'm going to end the slideshow here, and then we're going to go and show you how to do those definitions. Definitions are under setup and then accounting, and you'll have both income statement and balance sheet definitions here. Here I have a first definition, or I can add a new definition. I name it here. This is where if I had a definition in another company that I want to copy over, I could select my source company, and all my companies that I have will be, I have to check this box to have that option. Pick any of the farms I had here listed, and then I could pick the definition from any of that selected farm and bring it over. And click on edit. Here's where I have the option of building from ledger accounts or not. If any of you were in the data mining workshop, you heard that I do not like to start with ledger accounts on those reports, and I don't, because to me it's a lot of deleting on those type of report definitions and templates. But when I'm talking about an income statement or balance sheet, I do tend to start with my ledger accounts just so I don't miss anything. So basically what I have now is every single one of my income and expense accounts here. If it was a balance sheet, I would also have the asset and liability and equity accounts coming up. But at this point I could start changing my lines. So if I want all of my CCC loans together, I could highlight that line, choose change. It's going to stay as income, but I'm going to change my ledger account range. I'm going to change it to be 301 through 303. I hit the wrong thing over there, obviously. Through 303. I could also come over here and I could have just clicked on 303. Now what I need to do is get rid of the lines I duplicated. I can't use the same ledger account twice, so I need to get rid of the ledger accounts for 302 and 303. Delete. You can also click and drag, so if I want this above crop transfer livestock, I could come up here and click it and drag it and move it up above it. Save frequently so you don't do a lot of work and lose it, like any other program. I come back in though, income statement, edit, my changes. If you're deleting lines on here that you don't want on here anymore, if they're all in a row, you can keep hitting enter, and it will delete the next one in the row. I'm gonna make an error in here just so we can see it here really quickly. Okay. Okay, so I have a range there. So I'm going to click on View by Account. It's going to give me any errors, and I should have a couple errors pop up now. And yes, it tells me there's errors found right here in the pink in the bottom right. And I can look here. It tells me which ones. They have stars in front of them, and it tells me that multiple lines. So low value hogs is on multiple lines. So I want to go back to my definition and see where all I have ledger account 331, 332, and 335 selected, and take them out somewhere because I can't have them in multiple places. So I know I added this range here, so obviously I need to get rid of the single lines for those. Yes. Okay. Just run button. Okay. Okay. When you're doing your definition, you have the option of moving something that would normally be an expense up to an income. So, we'll say the prepaid discounts we want to show as income for some reason instead of an expense. You can change it here to income align. Click OK. And it's, I don't want that, mine turns blue. I don't know why mine turns blue. It's going to be up here now.
Sarah, these are just changing on this new definition.
This is just...
Nothing is changing on your income statement.
That's exactly right. It's only going to show when I run by this definition. Okay, I put it on the bottom there. So now my less prepaid discount is here under income. Okay.
For the different levels, like where it says expenses and it says each, you can add another level to classify your different types of expenses.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so if these income right here, if I wanted to put another heading in here, I would hit add. If these were crop, I'm going to put that as a heading. Heading here. Crop income. It's going to put a heading right there. Where'd it go? Yeah. There we go. Try that again. Crop income here. I move it up here one line. And so that will be subtotal when I run the report. You can put in as many headings as you want. A couple other options you have there is you can add in your section totals if you want. It will go ahead and automatically section total though based on your headings. If for some reason you wanted a detail line hidden, you could choose detail hidden, and it just means that I don't know why you want it hidden, but you could. So cash rents will be calculated into my crop income total and my total income, but it won't show up as a line on my income statement when I print it out. There could be, I can't come up with a reason right now why you want to do that, but I'm sure there is a reason, otherwise we wouldn't have it. Somebody's requested that at some point in time. So then if we ran this report by that definition, it's here where it says report definition. I'm going to use that user conference one. We'll just run that report. Okay. Here's the new heading I put in there for crop income. Somehow this feeder's current year, I accidentally must have dragged it up above the expense total or expense heading here. I don't have any prepay expenses, otherwise it would have shown up here in the income. I didn't have anything in that ledger account at this time for that time period selected. But it does look different from a regular income statement. Yep. The balance sheet one works just the same way. Except you have the additional account classes to work with there. Okay. Go back to the presentation. Okay. Sometimes you have issues with your definitions. You forgot to, for a ledger account somewhere, you added a new ledger account, you didn't add it to your definition. So if you are using a definition when you're running an income statement or balance sheet and you feel that you're off or there's something incorrect about it, run your income statement and balance sheet without a definition and compare it to see what you might be missing. If there's a specific dollar amount that you can track down to a specific ledger account, that would indicate that you've left a ledger account off your definitions. So that's kind of your check is running it obviously without a definition. If you have other issues with your income statement or balance sheet, you can run the trial balance report. It can help you find errors. Again, the trial balance is kind of a combination of your income statement and balance sheet. It lists your income and expense at the top, like an income statement, but then has all your equity, liability, and assets at the bottom, like a balance sheet. The income and expense that's at the top of the trial balance would be in the net income line on a regular balance sheet by itself. If you normally run date cash exchange option 2 or 3, because those are the ones you'd run if you have accounts payable and receivable, and you find errors that pop up, if you have an error with accounts payable and receivable and you run by options 2 and 3 on your income statement or balance sheet, there'll be a box that pops up. It will say, it'll give you the first error, and it'll tell you what invoice, what date range, what dollar amount, what vendor, but then it might say at the very bottom, but there's 13 more errors. So you go fix the first one. If you go back in and tell you what the second error is, or you can just go run the option 7 report on your AP and AR to recover all those the bad linking, and it might clear up all those errors for you. If you're getting those error messages and running your AP and AR by option 7 doesn't fix it, go to utilities and do recover bad data. If you've ran those and you're still you feel your balance sheet is still or if your balance sheet is out of balance, you need to narrow it down by the specific date that it went out of balance, and that's where you can use that date cash exchange report, and it'll show you where you went out of balance. Or you can just start running the balance sheet by smaller time periods and narrow it down by the date. So if you're running for 6 months and you're out of balance, I'd run it for 3 months. At 3-month mark was out of balance, and run for 2 months, and go down to the month that was out of balance. The other error tracking report that we have, though, that will show you if there's an issue with individual entries is the Transaction Plus User Defined Report. There's a box up in the top right-hand corner that says Find Undefined Entries. And that will find issues with, usually if you've deleted a ledger account, it will show there. If you've deleted a center division, it will show you there. You never delete any of those. Inactivate them, but never delete those type of setup files. It will also show if the entry is out of balance, and that happens. And I always get asked, well, how can an entry get out of balance? Well, usually it's because a ledger account class has been changed. So it was a liability and got changed to an asset account, or it was a asset account and now it's an equity account, or is it income account? Who knows what? But something has changed with the type, and so it's now out of balance. And that user defined report will find those.
One more, Sarah. Look back periods.
Oh yeah, if you're out of on your AP and AR, if you're out on those options, you might have an issue with look back periods, or
Do you know what look back periods are? Let's show them in utilities where you set that up, what the default is. Let's say you have you made an accounts payable, and it looks back so far when you're paying accounts payable, it looks back so many months to see if there are any out there. Sometimes that period gets old. It may be beyond the 12 months that it's looking back.
Yep.
We can set it up to 6. Now, why an accounts payable would be for 5 years, I don't know. But you need to keep track of how old some of your accounts payables and receivables have been. We've had customers that have used our product for a long time, and they might have something out there longer than that. Mm-hmm. So an accounts payable, your balance sheet will be off if it's never finding that accounts payable, or there's a payment to it, and it spans. It's longer than what the look back period is.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Those are the hardest ones to find.
Mm-hmm. So you have here the cash look back months, and your default is 12, but you have the option of 6 to 72 months, like she said. Not great accounting practice to go beyond the 12. I really say below 12 is better.
Otherwise, move it to a current liability,
Because
account.
technically, if it's open for more than 12 months, it is a liability. It's not, or an asset. It's no longer a payable or receivable. But we do allow it up to 72 months to look back. You could keep them open longer than that, but it's going to cause problems in the system. So keep those cleaned up, and you won't have to worry about it. The other thing is, while we're here, I guess, is a cleared look back months. It's very similar, but not the same. The cleared look back months is for your checks and deposits only. and this works with not the income statement balance sheet, but this is more to do with your check register reconciliation report if you're not in balance. And usually we'll see this in March, because the default value is 4 months. And so if something's been left uncleared from the previous year, you'll see it in March of the next year, because the default is 4 months. But the cleared look back months can go up to 12, and only up to 12 because, and the logic between why this one's a lower look back period is because the bank won't cash a check after 12 months usually. So we left it at 12. But if you have an issue with your bank statement not balancing all of a sudden, it's probably this cash look back months. It means you either need to change your look back months for your cleared, or you need to go find that uncleared check or deposit and void it or get rid of it. If it's truly uncleared, you need to get rid of that entry by voiding it or something.
Under the input and cleared checks, you can have that start back to like January of the previous year, so it will find any that are there. It's a quick find.
Yeah, you can run this. I've had people who have 2 year uncleared checks and deposits. So just keep that in mind if you have an off on your check register reconciliation.
So with your look backs, will that pick up information that isn't showing up in your aging reports? Or should it just be duplicated?
Depends on when you run the aging report date range back for.
Okay.
If you're only running for the last 6 months, but your cleared look or your cash look back is set for 24 months, and that aging report won't pick it up, but it will be out there still.
Okay.
So it's probably a good policy to run your aging report back as far as your cash look back months are set. Okay. You guys exchange, scrolling down here. On your aging reports, I'm going to show the AP aging really quick here. If I check this box to use all payments, it will find payments, but it will also give you down here your AP ledger balance, and this is the amount that shows up on your balance sheet. And this is a good indicator if you might have an issue with your balance sheet as well, because see, my total does not match my AP ledger. Which means I maybe need to run that AP aging report out further to pick up every unpaid AP to match that AP ledger balance. So this is one indicator if your balance sheet is off in payables and receivables. You can kind of look here and figure out where you might be off at as well. This is obviously off by $1,000 somewhere. It's pretty easy. It should be a pretty easy one to find, being a nice round number like that. But it is another way to kind of narrow down where your issue might be. I also want to show really quickly that user-defined report error tracking. When it's user-defined, it says right here, print undefined entries. I'll run this back a few years and see if I can find anything in this data set. I don't know if I can or not. Oh, yay. Good. This is your error report. Actually, you can see down here at the bottom, it tells you how many lines your report is long. So I have 468 lines that need to be cleaned up. And you can see here under account description, it says not used, and that's my indicator. It tells me what is wrong with this entry. So it tells me I deleted my ledger account, which you never should do. So you need to come in here and find what ledger account these really should have been to. Click here, it says unknown. So then scroll up here, I have to find a valid ledger account to put this to. Doesn't matter what it is as long as it's the same class. I'm just going to pick some kind of expense here. I don't know. I'm just going to choose miscellaneous expenses to get this to balance out. I'll do it again here on this line. Obviously, you probably want to find a good, the right line for it, the right for trucking and PPC check off on this case. But any expense account is going to fix that for right now.
If they had a bunch and it was the same one, the easy thing to do would be to go back in and
re-add it.
That one, and then you can inactivate it, and it's fine.
Yeah. This one, sometimes they'll have a number here, and then you can do that. This one did not give me any indication what it was trying to find the first time. So that wasn't an option on this one, but on a normal one, this one was from this is not a normal one you'd see. I imported a Packer file from somebody I don't have a data set for, so I didn't find those ledger accounts. So I refresh it, and that top entry should go away. And then this is the next one down I have. This entry down here isn't quite as apparent what the issue is. I don't have anything under accounts, center, or division that says not used. So if I right click on this entry, it's just to add a balance entry. And you can see this one actually is exactly double the total amount. So it's just a wrong ledger account type here. This is actually, they're all set to 300, which are income accounts, and they should all be expense accounts for feed. So I just go through and change them to the correct ledger account again, and it should clear up. If I pick any expense account, it should like it fine. You can see my amount to balance keeps getting less and less every line I go down. I'm at 0, I can save it again, refresh it, and it leaves.
It doesn't even allow you to save something out of balance, though, does it?
No.
This time through, so something happened after that original
Yeah.
entry.
Again, this is a circumstance that's not going to occur to you. I was importing somebody's mill file into this data set, again, not their data set, so it couldn't find the right ledger accounts that they had set up on their import, so I imported incorrectly on mine. You guys aren't going to be importing other people's data. It won't happen to you guys. Okay, so your goal is to have nothing here, to have these all be a completely empty report when you run this report. Okay. We talked about this briefly in the other presentation, but I'll talk about it again for people who may have came in. The check register reconciliation report, again, 2 reports in one. The indicator is this date by check. Date by check is a check register. Unchecked, it goes by date cleared. It's reconciliation.
Sarah, there were a couple more things on the user-defined report that were shown in the data mining seminar that maybe they would want to see.
Yeah, I'll have more on the user-defined report later, I think.
Oh, okay.
So I think we'll get back to that. Cash requirement report, again, works with AP, shows you what is due during the date you selected. So up here is your parameter screen, and here's how it would show. This one shows all the details, so you can see the actual details of every line on the AP, and see what your total amount due is and when the due date is. Again, you can hand that out to management, and they can tell you what payables they want paid. The AR aging report, again, we show here the total due and how many days past due they are. Here's some more on the user-defined report. This is, other than error finding, which is great at that as well, this is probably the most versatile report in FBS for Transaction Plus, or really, I use it just as much for finding smart feeder entries if they go through accounting as well. You can report by date entered. You can report by entry date. You can recap by a ledger, center, or vendor, or division. You can run by an entry type as well. And I'm going to see what, I don't remember what the next slide is before I go there. Okay. So on this user-defined report, you can obviously your normal date range, ledger, center, division. You would have the option for vendor here. You can pick one vendor at a time. These are vendors that are added on your vendor list. If they're not on the vendor list, you cannot run by if you type it in. I have to type it in exactly.
And it doesn't have to match exactly. You can type in John.
And find all the Johns.
everyone that's got
Yeah.
John in it.
Yeah. But if you're looking for a specific vendor, then you have to type it in exactly to find that specific, only that vendor, I guess, would be the way to say that. But it's easier, obviously, if you have it on the vendor file. The description, you can type in your descriptions, and again, it can be the first few letters, and it will search by that. Put that here. Entry types, Z is all entry types, but you can also narrow it down to only checks, deposits, journals, adjustments, payables, receivable, and voided entries. I haven't mentioned this in any of my presentations yet today. For adjustment entries, if at all possible, don't use them. Ignore that there's even a line that says adjustment entry on the entry screen. And I say that because an adjustment entry is a one-sided entry, so it gets you out of balance unless you have a specific problem you're trying to fix and clean up to get yourself back into balance. Then you might use an adjustment entry, but I even use those sparingly. If you're going to do an adjustment entry, I'd rather you go find the issue within the other ledger accounts and clean up the original issue than just putting a Band-Aid over it and making an adjustment entry. But that is an option. You can look them up here.
When I started with the company, they took the net income from the previous year and made an adjustment to retained earnings.
Mhm.
How is everyone else doing that?
FBS has it built in and does that for you.
Automatically.
You
'Cause
go.
ours doesn't.
Don't you have to set that up in the beginning if you don't set it up?
You have to get when you start a new year. You have to go input general, calculate retained earnings, and then it moves your net income to retained earnings from the previous year.
But when you started the first time, yes, they would do that as an adjustment entry, but after that, you shouldn't have to do it.
Yeah, every year you start a new year. You will.
Show them where that is.
Say it. Do it every year.
So we,
No.
No.
No. So after you. So if I was starting the year, we'll start. It doesn't matter. You roll over the new year, so you roll when you roll into 17. After you've rolled over beginning balances into 17, you go to input general, calculate retained earnings, and it doesn't even have to be a calendar year, fiscal year, at all. So you pick your retained earnings account. You pick the first month of the fiscal year. Again, you have every month option here. And you click calculate. And then my net income from 16 is rolled into retained earnings on January 1st of 17. And it does it for you.
I will have to go and check. I don't think that's an option in my drop down.
The only way it could
I would
not.
love to have seen that. It won't be there. It probably is. But
And if you go back into the previous year and, you add some entries or, think you're reconciling your checkbook and you left a check out, you go back and do that, that's fine. Then you come back into the current year you're working on, do this again.
It recalculates
It just
it.
replaces the entry that it made the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's been there for.
It's been there since the DOS version.
I'm going to call you.
Please do. The only way I would not be there is if you're on multi-user network version and the administrator hasn't gave you the capability of it. That'd be the only reason. So if that's the case, that
Maybe that is what it is.
we had
I'm
you.
the administrator. But I have my own user. I don't log into the admin, so that's probably what
That
it is.
could be
And
it.
you can go in and change your permissions.
Yeah.
Okay. See,
Yeah, so it does do
not
that.
be crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. But otherwise, I think I've worked, this is my 7th year with FBS, and I've only recommended to use an adjustment entry probably twice. So otherwise, try to avoid those adjustment entries, please. They just cause problems. Recap options. This is where you have the option to recap by ledger, center, division, description, vendor, or group and project. So, and you can toggle, you can choose one now, and when we run the report, you can change it in the report. So we're just gonna leave it ledger account for now. Your descriptions, these are mostly for feeding, smart feeder, but you can have the option for the location number and will be in the description field, or the feeding group number can show up in the description field. Otherwise, it's just standard description. Again, you have the same date, cash, exchange, and report types here. Some options over here that are kind of useful. I'm going to uncheck the undefined entry one. We don't want to see that. I do want to see detail. There's internal IDs on ledger account centers and divisions. If you want to see those, you could check that box. If you're running for checks but you don't want to see the offset in the actual checking account, you could exclude offsetting bank account there. And you can do, hey, there you got it. You can option to do that recap by entry, and I'll just kind of run that so you can see how that looks. I'm going to run this report here. So I've recapped by entry, and it should be 0 if your entry is balanced, and they should all balance. I chose to recap by ledger account, so if I go over here on the tab up here at the top, I have every ledger account here on the listed on the left, and then totals for those ledger accounts are over here on the right under the amount. But there are totals by each. You'll see every option up here across the top for optional fields on entry, and they'll have the totals hit the bottom under total income. If I'm here, I can toggle the type of recap though. If I don't want ledger account, if I want by center, I can choose to recap by center and then click recap. And now instead of ledger accounts, I have it recap by center. And from this screen, if you right click on it, it's not going to drill into a specific entry, but it will sort the detail tab by that center. I guess if I have that recap option on, it may not do it as well as if I didn't have the recap option on. But it'll go to the first one it finds then for that center 2595. I can further change it here by division. I only have one division, so that's not a very informative report. Here I have by description. So this might be very helpful if you're looking for all your back fat entries, or your total corn or DDGs or something like that. And then by vendor, I don't know if I have any groups or projects in here. I do have a couple of crop projects and a couple of groups here. So these last two would be crop audit projects, and these first 3 are smart feeder groups. Just total expenses here in the amount column. Okay. We're back to ledger accounts. Here on the export page, I'm going to go back to the detail first before I do export. Okay. There are, again, recapping and graphing options. Actually, I'm going to rerun this report without my recap on it because that makes it a little bit easier to do some of those items. So I'm going to take off that recap by entry. Rerun the report. So I could recap here, and I could sort it by, I can choose date, and then by, oops, sort. Okay. So I have by date here, and then by account. So they go in descending order up by date, and ledger account. But there's lots of different options there for your recap options. Okay.
Is that the same as the F9?
Yeah. Yeah. The other one here is some graphical options. So I could choose columns for date and amount. Okay. I don't know, just get a bar graph here. It's not going to be very good bar graph. Oops. I have just randomly picked some stuff there, but of course you could be a little more choosy on what you were graphing there. That doesn't mean anything, so I just randomly picked some. There are some graphing options there, just what I'm trying to point out there. Okay. And the last report I want to really touch on is a 1099 report, because there seems to be a lot of confusion on how this works. And I also want to point out the different options we have for reporting the 1099s. Your date range is obviously probably going to be the tax year, January to December. You have the option of types of 1099s, and we have interest, income, and miscellaneous. You again have your use date cash exchange. So if you use an AP and AR, you probably use option 2 or 3. On your vendor names to use, if you're looking at your vendor setup, you have a name and you have a vendor contact. So if you have the vendor by John Smith, but his legal name is John Smith LLC, then you might put John Smith LLC in the vendor contact, or vice versa. Whatever one you want to put on the 1099, that's you have to be consistent in which one you're going to use as your 1099 vendor field. Your minimum amount for your 1099 can be whatever that is, usually $600. And then here's where you get your types of 1099 forms. Option 1 or 2 are the ones where you go get the forms from the IRS. They no longer have to be red, though, I don't think. They used to have to be red ink, pre-printed forms that FBS just filled out. And then you have to line FBS up in the boxes to make it hit all the boxes, and you use these blank lines and horizontal adjustments to do that. Not gonna lie, that's not always easy. But then we have this new electronic filing option, which is option 3. It's a Nelco file. You set up a account with Nelco, which is a third-party vendor we use, and it saves the file electronically, sends it. You upload it to the Nelco portal. You pay Nelco a fee for, depends on how many 1099s and 1096s that you need to file. The price goes down accordingly to the more you file. What was the price last year, Cheryl? Do you remember per form?
No, I don't. But
I don't either.
they file it with the government, and they
Mhm.
mail the 1099 to the
Yeah.
person.
So they do state, federal, and they mail it to the.
Asian postage.
Yeah.
I was able to go back in and even reprint. I even edited one.
Yeah.
And redid it.
Yeah, you can edit them and reprint them, and they'll resend them for another small fee if you have to resend them. So those are your options: printing them yourself on your form at the office, sending it to Nelco, they'll electronically file them for you. You could also save them to a text file and take them to an accountant, or they could probably upload them and match them up on the form as well. And then here on the boxes over here on the right is where you put what. So these boxes correspond to the boxes on the 1099. And I don't remember which one miscellaneous income falls into, but I think it's like, I don't know if it's 3 or 4. But you put the ledger accounts that fall into that box in there. So if it was service, I don't know if I have a ledger account here for service, but we'll just say it was labor hired net. I don't know. Just pick the ledger accounts. It can be more than one. You put it there in the box. For this demonstration, I'm going to put all of my ledger accounts because I don't remember what I put those under. And I click OK. And it's going to give you a report. And so here you see the payer, and this is your company. Mine's called Test Farm. Here's the recipients. Shows under rents. box one is obviously rent. So usually it'd be usually under 3, I think, their other income. And then your total dollars it's going to show on the 1099, and this is where you can send it to Nelco, or go to the Nelco dashboard, or you can export it or close. These are the only 2 vendors I had listed as 1099 vendors. And again, if you thought somebody was missing off this list that you thought you were sending a 1099 to, they don't show up. First thing, check is the vendor setup. Make sure they're flagged as a 1099 vendor. And then if they are flagged and they're still not showing on this report and you think they should, go run a user define for that vendor and see what all ledger accounts you've hit for them. Maybe you don't have the right ledger account in the right box.
Or they're under $600.
Or they're under $600. Yeah.
I always cross-check. I run a user-defined report for all of my 1099 vendors. So
Yeah.
I know
What to expect on
that
that.
I've got those ledger accounts included there.
Yep. So that's not all of the reports, obviously, but those are kind of the ones that I feel are the most important in the basic accounting realm of things. We do have offer Schedule F, so just know that is there if you need that. There are ledger account detail reports that back up the balance sheet and income statements if you need those. There are different summary reports we can also run. Are there any questions or any reports that you have the need for that you don't know how to run?